to our October meeting. You probably just heard the meeting is going to be recorded. In the next couple of days, we'll post the recording to the town's website, and we will also post the slides. With that, I think I'll let Erica take it away. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Matt. I did want to let everyone know that we just got out of the Horn Pond Brook neighborhood meeting, and we had some technical difficulties. If this Zoom meeting happens to cut you out in any way, you can just click the link and rejoin. It should be no issue at all. So I apologize for that, but just wanted to announce that in case that were to happen again. And with that, thank you for having me again this evening. Thank you, Matt. This is my third time presenting with you all, so hopefully there's no surprises tonight. Go ahead and share my screen and walk through some of the updates here. Can I get a nod that you can see my screen? Thank you. All right. Good evening. My name is Erica Guidaboni. I'm joined tonight with Dan McCormick. I've met all of you back in October and earlier in the year, last year. Sharing the timeline again, we're at the star on the screen here, and the red is kind of the neighborhood outreach when we came to you all. As I mentioned, we came back in October, and over the course of the winter, we have progressed forward through engineering design. So today you'll see that the concepts are a little more formed and becoming final engineering CAD drawings at this point. After we meet with all of you tonight, we're kind of finalize and button up our design, move to town meeting. We're hoping for construction to take place this summer, stalling for the winter and then picking up again in the following spring, with the intention of having everything be in place for when the new Lynch School opens fall of 2025. Some updates from last time we all met. Permitting is underway with the Conservation Commission. This is a little more relevant to the other side of the school. There's within the floodplain along the Horn Pond Brook. So we're ensuring that we're not having any detriments to the environment, meeting with the Conservation Commission, getting our appropriate approvals there. We attended a meeting on February 12th, I believe, and came back and did a site walk with the commission on the 20th. And we're intending to attend the March 12th meeting for hopeful approvals. We've also been in close coordination with the fire chief. We want to ensure that anything we're designing does not impact emergency response. So we're you can see the photo there. We were laying out temporary materials where we're intending the curb extensions. I believe this is at Chesterford, just to ensure that we're not making anything too tight, that the truck can make all the turns that it needs to make without encroaching onto Pond Street over the center line. And you can see that DPW and engineering was there as well to provide any comments, and we have modified the design slightly to ensure that we are meeting the needs of emergency response and first responders. We also have had some thorough design reviews with the engineering and public works departments in town to ensure the integrity of the designs. Also, in speaking with you all last time, we did some due diligence and peer community conversations. We met with the city of Medford and the city of Woburn, with the city of Medford in regards to their speed humps on Route 38, and with city of Woburn in regards to any truck restrictions. So both things that came up at the meeting last time. We can get into more details there, but just a really quick summary is that the city of Medford essentially went outside of traditional standards for those speed humps. And ultimately, we're not going to go forward with them on Pond Street due to the volumes and the truck traffic on Pond Street. I will note that something that we heard was that when the road kind of does have truck traffic and that level of volume, that there can be a fair amount of noise that comes from speed humps. So you want to be really thoughtful about where you place them and ensure that we're not causing any issues for the abutters along the street as well. When we met with the city of Woburn, they have no intention for a truck restriction at this time. And they had concerns about, essentially if we wanted to put a truck restriction on Pond Street, it would cause issues where you're pushing the trucks either into the town center in Woburn or into town center in Winchester. So we're not going to move forward with that recommendation at this time there. I'm going to go through this one really quickly because I've had it up a few times now. This is just to orient ourselves with where the different projects are in relation to the school, kind of surrounding all directions within the district, with the intention of improving safety for the students accessing the schools, particularly on foot. So I'm going to start with Pond Street at Chesterford Road and Norfolk Street. As you'll see, these plans tonight are a lot more engineering looking and a little less friendly, honestly, to look at. We tried to colorize them, but the intention here is to, let you see that the plans are moving into final design and have moved from kind of conceptual design on aerials to, CAD-based drawings and survey. We're working through, grading, drainage implications, and the nuanced details of kind of the initial concepts that we came to you with last year. The tan represents, sidewalk material. The gray is asphalt and pavement, and the green is potential landscape areas. But what we're looking at this time is mostly lumen seed, so grass. So the drawing here is demonstrating curb extensions on both sides of Chesterford Road and Norfolk Street. We're having some conversations with some abutters to ensure that we're not impacting their access in any way here. We're also looking at improving the sight lines at the crossing on the kind of vegetated side with some cutting back some vegetation there. We're working with DPW on that. Improving we're providing some curbing there so it's a little more protected from the road. We've got some yield lines here, which they called like shark teeth. Optical speed bars is another thing that I'll get into in a second. I did want to make sure we note this isn't in the drawing. It should be updated. We're not providing any center lines any further back than where they already exist today. So these will really be just right at the throat of the intersection. We're not putting markings kind of further down roads that don't have. I think Norfolk doesn't have them. So we're not providing a new center line where there isn't one today. And then we've got these low profile hardened center lines kind of showing up in the dark black along the center line. The intention there is to narrow the road. I'll show you a picture in a moment at the crossing and ensuring that turns across the crosswalks on the side streets are done slowly and tightly and not kind of swooping across the intersections. So I've got some images here to kind of demonstrate some of the things that we're looking at around that location. So the kind of hardened center line that I just referred to is essentially, something that's bolted into the center line here that cars typically won't drive over, but emergency response can. And it just encourages a slower speed and a shortened crossing. The optical speed bars, they actually get tighter as you keep driving, so that make you feel like they're getting closer together, which makes you think that you're driving faster. And they have been proven to reduce speeds by about 5 miles per hour. So we're going to have those in both directions in advance of the crossing. In addition, the curve there actually does warrant an advisory speed limit of 15 miles per hour. So we're going to place a advisory speed sign in each direction approaching the crossing, along with pavement markings marking 15. This will be 15. I couldn't find that online, but to demonstrate the reduction, I think pavement markings can go a long way in reminders for speed around crossings. Moving towards the school, there's Woodside Road and Brentwood Road. These are fairly similar. Again, tying into the existing sidewalk, shortening that crossing by at least half, which is a huge benefit to the crossing and safety here. Still ensuring that there's no issues with turning, no vehicle encroachment over the center line. It's we did learn that there was some frustration about Woodside at Wildwood, so we're not being as dramatic with our turning radii there. Providing again that low profile hardened center line for turn restrictions, or slowing down turns. And additionally, the curb extension here. At the Brentwood Road one, we're going to be creating a sidewalk and providing some drop-off area. This one's going to be coordinating directly with the school project. We're going to kind of hand this off to them to make sure that they're in alignment and seamlessly building with the connection to the site. Next steps will be finalizing the engineering design, as I mentioned. Springtown meeting is in April. We're hoping for construction to begin in 2024 in the summer through a bid process, and we'll continue to coordinate with the school project to ensure that it's all completed before the school opens in the fall of 2025. That's the end of my formal presentation. We'll open it up to questions. So if you go ahead and raise your hand, that would be helpful, and then I can ask you to unmute yourself. Go ahead, John.
If the curve warrants a 15-mile-an-hour speed limit and the average speed is 36 miles an hour on the road, according to your study, what are you doing to slow them down the other 16 miles an hour? I've seen nothing in this presentation that limits truck traffic, slows the speed on the road, or protects the safety of children walking Pond Street sidewalks from a car jumping the curb and killing them. I think child safety has completely and totally been left out.
The average speed limit, I was just looking at my study, so thank you, John. The average speed when we conducted the study was actually 33 in one direction, excuse me, and 32 in the other. Our intention here is to slow cars down through the traffic calming that I just mentioned. I don't know if there's something you want us to look at more, but as I mentioned, speed humps are not really feasible on Pond Street. And we looked at things like, sidewalk and chicanes, and everything came back that wasn't really particularly feasible on Pond Street. So I'm curious what you.
When we first moved to Pond Street, it was a no truck route. When there was the construction at the substation, those signs were taken down and never put back up. I don't understand why it cannot become a no truck route again.
I guess I would ask if Matt has any thoughts on that, and having spoken with the city of Woburn.
Yeah, so we followed up. First of all, I know there were some comments about the signs being up in Winchester. No one in the town has been able to identify that signs in Winchester were up for truck exclusions. We did reach out to Woburn because it was noted at the last meeting that there was a truck exclusion sign on, I guess it's Lake Ave there at Main Street that were taken down. Woburn indicated that it is not a truck exclusion route. We also checked with MassDOT, who makes the official determination or approval of truck exclusion routes, and it is not listed as a truck exclusion route by MassDOT in either Woburn or in Winchester. We also looked at some of the standards, as Erica mentioned, for when you would include a truck exclusion route, and we don't believe that Pond Street would meet all of the requirements for truck exclusion. And then finally,
with a school and a 15-mile-an-hour curve, there wouldn't be a need for it.
No,
I find that really hard to believe.
Yeah, I'm really sorry that, we can't address all of your comments as part of this project. But I do feel like we did some due diligence and we've tried to take as many different approaches as we feel that we can. Thanks.
But none that will effectively slow or limit traffic on Pond Street, just the streets that are entering from the abutment, correct?
Well, that was the main objective of the project in terms of the crossings and making the crossings at the side streets safer. So that
you wouldn't make a street that has a
Yeah.
school safer. You would
Yeah.
only make the crossing
Yeah.
safer.
I
That seems like a
believe, as
complete
Erica,
waste of a project.
well, I'm sorry you feel that way, but as I said, Erica outlined a number of the steps that we are taking. The 15 mile per hour is an advisory speed. It is not a posted speed. It's not an enforceable speed, but it is something that is recommended. It's more than what we have out there now, and it's something to bring
It wouldn't
attention
matter
to
if
the
it was
location.
enforceable. There's never been a cop ticketing on this street
Okay.
ever.
All right. Well, I'd encourage you if you want to reach out afterwards to discuss this further, but I think
Because you have
we're
nothing
trying-
in this project that'll address this. Is that what you're saying?
Right. Well, I'm sorry you feel that way. That's not how we feel. And I think we've outlined what our approach is and why we can't handle or can't do some of the things that you're asking for. Thanks.
Go ahead, Brendan.
Hi, this is actually Laura Schiffman. I have a question also. I was wondering, you mentioned Medford and the speed bumps there, and that they went outside of the regular requirements, or went outside of the, I forget your specific wording, but
Standards.
basically, yeah, do you want to repeat it?
Sure. Yeah, so there's quite a few standards that come into when we would typically provide speed humps. Has to do with vehicular volume, trucks or not trucks, essentially the classification of the road. So if it's a arterial, a collector, a neighborhood side street. There's also things that are related to the curve of the road, so the radius, longitudinal grades being a certain. So if it's on a hill, you really don't want them. the width of the road. There's a few others, but essentially like main streets is kind of what, what it all boils down to is what people would probably think of as main streets.
So then, but it sounded like Medford went outside of those
Yes.
guidelines and then still went in with the speed bumps.
Yeah.
What was their ultimate decision making that led to that process? Then why can that not be replicated here? It seems like it's, again, I mean, John makes a good point. It seems like there's not really sufficient care taken to try and slow down vehicles. And just advisory postings. I'm not sure if people follow them, and just like John said, I don't see that there's ever been enforcement on speed that's been done on this road ever. We have gotten warning tickets about the snow emergency and parking bans, so there is certainly somebody who's checking, but it's just not for speed. So that's a concern, and I think that we would feel very strongly if there was a little bit more due diligence done and thinking about what ultimately brought Medford to do this and why Winchester can't replicate that, even if Medford went outside of these requirements. It seems like Route 38, again, is a little bit more heavily trafficked, even wider than Winchester, or Pond Street, rather.
Yeah, I mean, a big part of this is sort of unfortunately what Matt alluded to here is, we're trying to focus on ensuring that people on foot crossing those, using that sidewalk on the south side of Pond Street are getting across those crosswalks safely, using a connected sidewalk, making those crosswalks super short. That's where a lot of the focus is for this project. I recognize that there is concerns around safety on Pond Street, but this wasn't a traffic calming project for Pond Street. So we really tried to do the best we could to incorporate the comments that we heard here today, having conversations with the communities nearby that were not necessarily part of the scope of this project, just to acknowledge and do our due diligence with them to ensure that we heard them. In terms of kind of going outside the standards, I mean, I'd say that it's a little bit of an uncomfortable thing as an engineer to go outside of standards. And, they sort of said that they were willing to do it anyway, which is certainly something that could be possible if there's, the will for that. But we did hear quite a bit that there are neighbors that are really upset about the sound that they're hearing at their homes. And I wouldn't want to, put anyone in that position where we put a speed hump on a street that I didn't feel super comfortable about, and then Matt's getting the phone calls that people are awake at night because of the speed hump. So that was where we're coming from. I'm not saying that that's going to alleviate your concern, or I'm not taking away from what you're saying, but that's where we landed on that one. Thanks. Go ahead and should be able to unmute yourself. Yeah.
The 15 mile an hour, is that just at Brantwood Road, the advisory, or is it at all of these entries, turns?
So it's at the curve actually where the crossing is essentially the radii of that curve. It's kind of a horizontal turn along Pond Street that warrants a 15 mile per hour zone.
Near
So right
Chesterford?
by Chesterford.
It is. Couldn't you also have them, like, it seems to me the turn at Brantwood coming from Route 3 to Brantwood is also a tough turn, couldn't you also add 15 mile an hour signage elsewhere? That might help alleviate the situation.
I believe that Dan and I looked at that, and I don't recall the number of that. We looked at the two radii because we have the survey, so we know exactly what the turn radii is there, and it did not warrant an advisory speed. I don't have the numbers off the top of my head, but we did look at it. Because you're already signed for 25. I believe the advisory there might have warranted 25, but the whole speed limit of the road is 25.
I mean, I live on Chesterford, so I frequently make that turn, and obviously you're slow to 5 to make the turn you have to slow down to make the turn anyway onto Chesterford, but of course you can slow very close to Chesterford if you have good brakes. But you know, anything that could reduce speed along there would be welcome. And I know you put those little markers in. I guess that's a help. And they did say when they put on the sidelines that that was supposed to slow traffic because people think it's narrow. So whatever.
So you can take a little more closer look if you're having trouble orienting yourselves or anything. You could send an email to that email that Matt put in there, and we can walk you through it. Go ahead, Teresa.
Hi. One thing that I wanted to ask about is one in terms of John had asked about enforcement, which I completely agree. I've never seen any enforcement along the road. What is the best avenue to really encourage improvements in enforcement along the road? Is that through you, Matt, the town engineer? Is that reaching out to the PD directly? Yeah, what's the best approach to that?
Reaching out to the police department directly. Sergeant Batchelor's the traffic safety officer. I don't have his contact off the top of my head, but it would be on the police department's website. He would probably be the most appropriate person to reach out to.
And then kind of not related to that, but I guess like to kind of further break down a couple of things that I know have been concerns along Pond Street that are, relative to the safety concerns along the road, which I know is not the, I guess I would say, the purview of this specific project relative to Lynch. But I think it would be helpful to just kind of lay out the best path forward. So we talked about enforcement. I was happy to see the optic speed markings. I think, anything that you can do to get drivers to take their foot off the pedal helps. If that is determined to be an effective improvement, is that something that the town would be willing to implement elsewhere? There's another curve more towards Route 3 that there's a near crash on a daily basis there. So that's another location that comes to mind for me where I'd love to see that sort of thing there. Is that something that the town would consider in the future?
Yeah, I think we would absolutely consider, this, I'm not familiar with, or I haven't used this in my past experience. So if it's something that's successful, I think absolutely would want to replicate it in other locations.
And then the last question that I had is at the RFB, Erica, you talked about cutting back on vegetation. I mean, that's kind of a concern. It kind of narrows the road the entire length of it. That's something where I know residents have reached out to the DPW to request that vegetation be cut back because it does restrict the width of the road, it does restrict sight lines, and the response, it also restricts access to fire hydrants along the road and that sort of thing. And the response has been not great. I would say slow at best. Is the DPW, I mean, is there, I guess I'm looking for what can I get? How can we make this a bit more functional for us to make the road safer overall?
So I can't speak for the entire corridor, but I know that at the RFB, we've specifically talked with the new DPW director about how this project is going to cut back the vegetation, but then there's a need to really continuously maintain it so that it doesn't grow back. And I think he's on board with that. He's looking at additional equipment that will help maybe do kind of the low brush clearing. So I hope that there's more interest on the town's part after making these investments and in keeping up with that.
Okay, thank you very much. That's
Cool.
all I have. Thank you.
Go ahead, Eric.
Hi, this is Eric Sherm at 94 Pond. I just want to echo Laura and John's comments about actually physical boundaries or some sort of, I wouldn't call them obstacles to lower either speed or something like that around the street. I know you mentioned that speed bumps would introduce new sound and noise issues. I'm not sure about. I know speed humps. Yes, that makes sense. I'm not sure about those gradual speed tables that kind of go up and down slowly. If that was ever a consideration, um, that would be something. Um, at least I've just seen them executed in some areas pretty well. Um, but I just want to make sure that Laura and John know that there's others that share those sentiments, and we need some sort of physical restrictions other than I'm really excited about those optical lines that come through. That's a new one to me, and that looks like it will really play out well. But just people get going when they start from Route 3 and they keep up that speed through that straightaway. That kind of goes right into Lynch, and they keep up that speed through that straightaway. And I think that like 1/10 of a mile, all clear, you can see the whole way, it's completely straight. That's where the speed increase happens. Um, and I think something needs to happen in that area to just slow, because people I get slow down around the first turn when you come in out of Route 3 on Pond, and then they slow down when they get close to Chesterford, because those are those narrow-ish turns. But that straightaway is where people pick up speed and they don't stop, either way. So that's where my main concern is. I know that's not completely in the scope of this project doing crossings, so I have some hold out for future improvements for traffic calming. But I do want to say that that is a big source as a stakeholder, even though it's not directly the scope of this project. That straightaway would be a big source of the problems.
Thank you. Go ahead, Nancy.
Hi, how are you? I'm Nancy Savoy. I'm at 215 Pond, which I think I'm right on. We are right on that straightaway that he's talking about. And when you first brought it up, that was what I was going to suggest is when the school opens to evaluate what is going on the street, once the school opens, once the traffic, the entrances, I thought that that was a great idea to reevaluate when it came, because I know that we have an indentation in the street in front of our house, and the trucks make quite a loud noise when they hit that indentation. So I don't know the noise that a speed bump would make from a truck. And we've been there for 18 years. So we've had a reduced speed sign across the street, slow down when school's in session, 20 miles an hour. I don't really think it's operating anymore, but the cars totally ignored that sign. And, there'd be the cars just really do speed. So, maybe that school sign could be reactivated, or maybe a policeman could be put down there, maybe at the start of school, so that the cars think the policeman might be there every day, or they stop pulling cars over, and it's like, oh wow, they are going to start giving tickets for speeding, and it just may, make people aware of that. My question is, if you go back to the design, the Brantwood Road off of Pond is a short road, and then it makes it so Brantwood, what is Brantwood still, you only show what the top half of Brantwood, and then it's still gonna turn to the right when it gets down there?
Yep. So all the changes are kind of right at Pond Street. You really won't notice anything different as you get further down. I know there's the school project, so I guess I should take that back. I don't know. I don't think the school project is doing much there, but the road still bends. You're just not seeing it on the screen because we're kind of focused in on the intersection at Pond Street.
Okay, but by your design, aren't there quite a few parking spaces? If you're going down Brantwood right on the left, closer to the Lynch School sign, you have green grass, but where is the 2 lanes of school parking for the staff or something? Where is that in this map?
Making any change to any of the on-street parking on Brentwood as part of this project.
So the design that's online, that you took down all the trees beside our house.
The whole
So,
forest area.
right, the whole forest area that was there on Brentwood on the left, you removed every single tree because I saw a map of parking.
Yeah, so I think the questions you're asking are not really part of this project per se, but I think if I had left my email or the department's email address, and I'll add it in again. If you could email us, we can help answer that a little bit better, because that's kind of the interface between this project and the school projects. And Erica and I probably can't provide you all the answers right now, but we can definitely get you in touch with people who can give you some more information.
Okay, and I have one time been in touch with the woman that
Okay.
is spearheading the project when they started taking down all the trees.
Okay.
And so you're just looking at the road, but to the left on Brantwood, the parking is still all gonna
Right.
exist there on all the land that you took the trees down on.
There is going to be parking. There's been some requests from the neighborhood to maybe limit that during school hours, so that's something that's being discussed. But there will be the physical space to park.
Okay, and are you also putting a complete sidewalk on that side?
Yes.
So cars will be able to drive into the parking area, but other than where they're gonna drive in, is it gonna be a sidewalk complete on that side as well as a sidewalk that's on the other side?
Yeah, so the sidewalk will be extended from sort of where the Erica showed all the way into the school.
Okay, okay. If you're talking about the roads and you only showing the top half off Pond, are any of these roads going straight through the new Lynch to be able to exit on the other side?
So there's a gate that's going to be on the site that would allow employees to pass through as necessary, but it won't be, like you won't be able to use it as a cut through. Regular vehicles will not be able to cross through the school to get to the other side.
Okay, so that's good, because if there was gonna be a direct connection from, is that Horn Pond Brook Road on the other side, we would take even more traffic if there was a road that was gonna be open, basically in front of where the old playground, I mean, it would open all the way, and we would take on so much traffic of people trying to avoid lake and pond down at the pond and just cut through and keep going. So, okay.
Yeah,
So,
that definitely came up during the design as a concern, the design of the school. So that's not going to be allowed.
excellent. And who's gonna be responsible to close or open the gate?
Again, it'd probably best for me to get you in touch with one of my other staff people, but I believe it would be the vehicle would have a card. So it's not a gate that's just opened, during the day and closed. It's actually, you have to have a card to be able to use the gate. But
Oh,
let
all
me
right, that's,
let me
okay.
if you send me an email, I can get you in touch and get you some clear answers on these.
Okay, okay, all right, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you. It's like Eric, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, for enforcement, this is 2 seconds. For enforcement of traffic, I can reach out to Winchester PD and offer my wishbone driveway for them if they want to pull people over in that straightaway. That's all I have.
Thank you. Not seeing any more hands up. As we mentioned, Matt put the email in the chat. If you have any follow-up or want to have more direct questions, or we're unable to read some of the slides tonight, feel free to reach out. The recording will be on the website in the next couple of days. Is there anything else you wanted to add, Matt?
That's it. We'll post the slides probably tomorrow. We'll have the update on the website. You have our email address if you want to follow up with any specific questions. We appreciate your attending tonight and dealing with some of our technical difficulties. And we also, we appreciate that we're not fully meeting the expectations of what some folks were looking for, but we have listened and we've tried to respond as best we could. I did see one other person raise their hands.
Thanks, Matt. All right, go ahead, Michelle.
Hi there. Thank you again for your presentation. Can you hear me okay?
Go ahead.
So I just want to summarize just because things got kind of off topic. So I just want to make sure I understand. So the improvements are focused mainly on narrowing the crosswalk areas that children would have to cross at the streets that enter Pond Street. There's not anything physically that's able to slow the traffic down. So there's no ability to do any sort of speed table or speed hump, and there's no chance of it not being a truck route.
To put it bluntly, that's fairly correct. Yeah, so mostly going to be curb extensions at the intersections, the entry points at the four cross streets on Pond Street. That includes some low profile hardened center lines, which are intended to have vehicles that are turning over the crossings have to move more slowly when they're making those turns. We've got the advisory speed limit with signage and markings going in around the corner, some clearing and curbing being added to the crossing, along with optical speed bars and a hardened center line at that location as well. So that's where we're at for the improvements for this project as it relates to Pond Street.
Okay. It's just very confusing to me that, I mean, I know it was a different project, but that when they did the underground high tension wire project, that went, ripped up most of the streets around us in Winchester, that they went ahead and they made that curb extension. So it's really hard to turn onto, I believe it's Woodside now. And then also they put those speed humps. Do you hear any negative feedback from neighbors about the speed humps that are near Winter Pond?
I'll ask Matt if he can confirm this with me, but I will say that those are not, that is not a truck route. The volumes are lower on that street, and they're not particularly near anyone's home. They're kind of more along the pond.
Agreed.
Okay, and you were saying that Medford went outside the box because clearly 38 is a truck route, but they chose to put speed humps anyway.
That's correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead, Brandon.
Hi, yes, thank you for the presentation. Appreciate it. One thing, yes, I like to, again, reiterate, the speed is substantial. There's a lot of trucks, a lot more trucks than usual going down Pond Street. And I was wondering if it's ever possible that we can narrow the road just a little bit, maybe, separate the sidewalk from the road itself. Is there any studies into that for kind of future updates? Thank you.
Definitely. So unfortunately, we've tried to strike the balance here. I've heard, from your neighbors as well, that people brave folks like to ride their bikes on Pond Street, and we're concerned about having to be pushed into the road any further with narrowing. So I think at the first meeting we had maybe last summer, when we were kind of reaching out and talking about options for Pond Street, we heard reactions around not narrowing. We actually had the curb extensions going out into Pond Street as part of the initial design, and we got a lot of pushback on that. So where we landed is not messing with the width of Pond Street at this time. Go ahead, Jennifer.
Thank you. I'm wondering if I see this correctly, it looks like the project is basically the curb extensions on Chesterford and Norfolk and then some road markings. Are you able at this point in time to give a ballpark of what you think that project would cost?
Yeah, so it's also all Woodside and Brentwood as well. So it's 4 locations plus
Okay.
the improvements at the crossing. This project also includes work over in the Horn Pond Brook side, as well as you saw at the original slide where I kind of had 12 projects listed out. I wanted to focus in tonight on the ones that are on the Pond Street side, because the past couple of meetings, it's been clear that those are the things that people were focused on with this neighborhood.
I actually am just wondering about this component of it. I was at the earlier meeting as well. I'm wondering about this
Okay,
component
great.
of it, if you're
Great.
able to clarify.
I'm not gonna be able to quote like which, what the cost is individually on all the projects. I think overall, I won't, Dan, what's the overall right now? I don't want, I don't want to say anything that he's gonna tell me to regret.
That's one of the files I did not have open right now, so grab that
Okay.
one.
Give us a moment, Jennifer.
Sure, thanks.
So I think at the previous design submittal, we had just over 2.1 million.
Sorry, my computer just went out on that. Unfortunately, did you say 2.1 million?
Correct. And that was
And that's for all of it, or that's for this component?
that is every site.
All the sites.
Correct.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Eileen.
I just have 2 questions.
Mhm.
The crosswalk on Pond Street. Lane, if there was no,
I'm sorry. I think you cut out. Say that again.
currently on that crosswalk on Pond Street, are they going to stay? I don't,
I'm sorry. Your audio is cutting out for me. I'm not able to hear your question. Could you potentially type it in the chat? Sorry about that. I'll move on to Anne and we can try you again in a moment if you're not able to type in. Go ahead, Anne.
All right, just one other, you showed the Lynch sign. Actually, my son carved that sign almost 30 years ago, although it's been replaced because it was hit by a truck once down Pond Street. A truck went right through the sign, took out some of his plantings and everything, probably 15 years ago. And the road curves off to the left there, right where children are crossing and entering. And I would think there should be some slowing right near the entrance to the school at Brantwood there, because I mean, we were just, obviously we were upset my son's sign went kaput, but we were also concerned that there could have been children walking there. The trucks go very fast past there. So why wouldn't you slow them down entering the school? So.
I think our intention is that we are trying to, with the school zone and the other improvements that we just talked about. It's not, like I mentioned, the curve radii there is not dramatic enough to warrant an advisory speed under 25 miles per hour. Were you able to answer Eileen's question in the chat? Wonderful. Okay, not seeing any more hands. The meeting will expire in 5 minutes, so make sure we cut out before. But please, if anyone has any follow-up questions, please reach out on the email. Oh, we got another hand. Go ahead, John. We have a few minutes left.
One quick question, Matt. You mentioned that it wasn't the scope of the project. If the project were to be different, what avenue would citizens in the area have to take? Do you approach the school committee? Do you approach the town board? What is the best avenue?
You're on mute, Matt.
I'm not sure that the scope of this project can be changed at this late in the game, particularly based on what our recommendations are. But if you wanted to, you could reach out to other people to initiate a conversation.
So even if it's beyond this, if you go to the town, if it's within this project, is this money that was set aside by the school committee? Should we approach school committee members like Tom Hopcroft, I know lives on Pond Street?
Again, I apologize. I started last July, so I'm not, or last June, I'm not 100% familiar with the history of this project. But I believe that the town approved it as part of the override for the Lynch School, and then it was approved by town meeting. So I'm not sure, typically the town staff would review traffic concerns that come in. But I think you're hearing from town staff today what the thoughts are with regards to some of the things you've asked for.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, I'm gonna allow Brandon to speak one more time, and then I'm gonna close the meeting because I think we're gonna run out of time here on it. Thanks. Go ahead.
Yeah, just one more thing. It seems like in terms of scope, this may not be possible, but the enforcement piece doesn't cost this project a single additional dollar. And instead of having the residents call the police department and make the complaint, could it be possible that the departments, engineering, DPW, whoever else is involved in this, have conversations among different departments and request that there's a little bit more enforcement, particularly for the safety of the children. If there's, Anne mentioned the story about the sign being taken out. There have been other crashes. Teresa was mentioning other near crashes. It would be a great request, I think, on our side, at least from our perspective, if there was any effort made to increase the enforcement on this road for speed. Be nice to get the commitment on the town's part.
All right. Okay. I think we're gonna close the meeting. Feel free to send emails with any questions. Go to the website. The recorder will be on there. And we'll keep the conversation going. Thank you so much, everybody.